What's up, WrestleScope Nation? Before we dive into today's absolute chaos, smash that like button right now because what I'm about to reveal is going to shake the entire wrestling community to its core. Chris Jericho just made statements that have the wrestling world in an absolute frenzy. A WWE superstar completely threw the script out the window on live television. And we're diving deep into one of the most controversial moments in WWE history that people are still talking about decades later. This isn't your typical wrestling news breakdown. This is the kind of content that separates the casual fans from the diehards. And if you stick around until the end, I'm going to reveal something about the current state of professional wrestling that's going to change how you watch every single show moving forward. Hello viewers, if you're new here, please don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button for daily updates on WWE Raw. Let's get into it. The Jericho situation. Chris Jericho, the learning tree, Y2J, Le Champion, the man who has literally reinvented himself more times than anyone else in professional wrestling history. But his recent comments have sent shockwaves through both AEW and WWE locker rooms, and the internet is absolutely exploding. Now let me be crystal clear here before the comment section goes nuclear. When we talk about Jericho's recent statements, we need to understand the context. This isn't just some random wrestler throwing shade. This is a man who has been at the absolute pinnacle of both companies. He's main evented WrestleMania. He was the first AEW World Champion. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer in anyone's book. So when Chris Jericho speaks about the wrestling business, people listen. And what he said recently about the state of professional wrestling, specifically regarding creative direction and talent utilization, has created a massive divide in the fan base. Here's what we know. Jericho has always been brutally honest about the wrestling business. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He's been on record multiple times discussing what works and what doesn't in modern wrestling. And recently, his commentary about certain aspects of AEW's creative direction has raised eyebrows. But here's where it gets interesting. Is Jericho actually burying AEW? Or is he doing what he's always done, being a vocal veteran who wants to see the company succeed? There's a massive difference between constructive criticism from someone who's invested in the product versus someone trying to tear it down. Let me ask you something, WrestleScope Nation. When veteran wrestlers speak out about issues they see in their company, are they being disloyal or are they being professionals who care about the business? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this is a heated debate right now. Jericho has been instrumental in building AEW from the ground up. His star power helped legitimize the company in its early days. His willingness to put over younger talent has been documented extensively. So the idea that he would suddenly turn around and genuinely try to damage the company doesn't add up when you look at his track record. But the wrestling internet doesn't deal in nuance, does it? One quote gets clipped, it goes viral on Twitter, and suddenly you've got people claiming someone is shooting on their own company or exposing the business. The reality is almost always more complicated than the headlines suggest. What we're seeing here is likely Jericho doing what Jericho has always done, stirring the pot, creating conversation, and keeping himself relevant in the discourse. The man is a master at working the fans and the media. He's been doing it for 30 years. This could very well be part of a larger story that we won't understand for months. And here's something that nobody else is talking about. Jericho's comments, whether intentional or not, have created more interest in AEW programming. People are tuning in to see if there's tension. They're analyzing every segment more carefully. They're debating online. That's engagement, folks, and engagement is what keeps wrestling companies alive in 2025. The wrestling business has always thrived on controversy, on discourse, on fans being passionate enough to argue with each other. Jericho understands this better than almost anyone in the industry. So before we jump to conclusions about what he said and what it means, we need to remember who we're dealing with here. This is the same guy who invented the list, the same guy who became a meme with a little bit of the bubbly, the same guy who has seamlessly transitioned between being a serious main event threat and a comedic character multiple times throughout his career. Chris Jericho knows exactly what he's doing. The off-script moment. Now, let's talk about something that sends chills down the spine of every wrestling promoter on the planet. A wrestler going off script during a live broadcast. In an era where wrestling is more scripted than ever, where every promo is written by a team of writers, where corporate oversight is at an all-time high, there's something absolutely electric about a performer throwing caution to the wind and speaking from the heart. But it's also incredibly dangerous. It can derail storylines, it can create legitimate backstage heat, it can even result in suspensions or releases if it goes too far. The wrestling business is built on trust between the performers and the company, and going off script breaks that trust in a major way. So when a major WWE star recently decided to go into business for themselves during a promo segment, it created immediate backstage chaos. And the fallout from this moment is still playing out behind the scenes. Here's what makes the situation so complicated. In today's wrestling landscape, the line between shoot and work is more blurred than ever. Companies have figured out that fans love the idea of something being real, so they'll deliberately create moments that feel unscripted even when they're completely planned. This is what we call working the smart marks. It's giving the hardcore fans who think they know everything a moment that feels like they're getting a peek behind the curtain, when in reality, it's still part of the show. But this particular moment, the evidence suggests this was not part of the plan, and here's why. First, the immediate reaction from other performers in the segment. You can see the genuine confusion on their faces. These are trained professionals who know how to react to unexpected situations, but there's a split second of real bewilderment that you can't fake. Second, the production immediately went to a different camera angle. When something is going according to plan, the production truck knows exactly which shot they need. When you see those abrupt, awkward camera cuts, it's usually because they're trying to figure out how to handle something unexpected. Third, and this is the big one, the immediate social media silence from the wrestler involved. When something is a planned work, wrestlers usually continue the storyline on social media afterward. When there's radio silence, it often means they've been told to shut it down while the office figures out how to handle it. Now, what was actually said during this off-script moment is where things get really interesting. The wrestler didn't just deviate from the planned promo. They touched on real-life backstage frustrations. They referenced creative decisions that haven't made sense. They hinted at political maneuvering behind the scenes. And the live crowd, they ate it up, because there's something about authenticity, or even the appearance of authenticity, that resonates with wrestling fans in a way that scripted content sometimes doesn't. This creates a real dilemma for WWE. On one hand, they need to maintain order and structure. They can't have performers just doing whatever they want on live television. That's how you end up with chaos. That's how you end up with lawsuits. That's how you potentially damage your TV deals. On the other hand, this off-script moment created more buzz than anything else that happened on that particular show. It's been replayed millions of times. It's been analyzed in every wrestling podcast and YouTube channel. It's gotten mainstream attention from sports media outlets. So, do you punish the wrestler and send a message that this behavior won't be tolerated? Or do you recognize that they just created a viral moment and find a way to capitalize on it? This is the constant balancing act that wrestling promoters face in the modern era. You want your performers to feel empowered and authentic, but you also need structure and planning to create coherent, long-term storytelling. The greatest wrestlers of all time were the ones who knew exactly where the line was and how to dance right up to it without crossing over. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a master at this. The Rock understood it perfectly. Even today, someone like CM Punk, when he's healthy and employed, knows exactly how to make something feel real while still serving the larger story. But when a wrestler genuinely crosses that line, that's when things get complicated. That's when backstage relationships get strained. That's when careers can be damaged. The aftermath of this off-script moment is still playing out. Will the wrestler involved face consequences? Will this lead to creative changes? Will WWE decide to lean into the controversy and make it part of the storyline? These are the questions that keep wrestling fans engaged and coming back week after week. The Playboy controversy. Now we need to address something that's been a topic of intense debate in the wrestling community for over 2 decades: Trish Stratus and Playboy magazine. Before we dive deep into this, I need to establish something important. This segment isn't about being gratuitous or disrespectful. This is about examining a significant cultural moment in WWE history and how it reflects the evolution of women's wrestling and society's attitudes toward female performers. In the early 2000s, WWE had a very different relationship with Playboy magazine.
Multiple women's wrestlers appeared in the magazine, and WWE would actively promote these appearances as part of their programming. It was seen as mainstream crossover exposure, a way to bring attention to WWE from outside the wrestling bubble. Trish Stratus, one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time and a legitimate WWE legend, was part of this era. And the controversy surrounding her Playboy appearance represents a fascinating intersection of wrestling history, women's rights, and how we view female performers in 2025 versus how they were viewed 20 years ago. Here's where this gets complicated. At the time, many of the women who appeared in Playboy said they were proud of it, that it was empowering, that it was their choice. But as society has evolved and conversations about women in wrestling have matured, some of those same women have expressed more complicated feelings about that era. Trish Stratus specifically has handled questions about her Playboy appearance with incredible grace and nuance. She's acknowledged that it was a different time, that she made the choices she felt were right for her career at that moment. But she's also been clear that the women's division has evolved tremendously since then.